This is the 2021 Mercedes AMG GLA35. To break that name down a bit, the GLA part means this is the second generation of the smallest SUV Mercedes builds. The AMG part of the name means this has more power and performance. So the question becomes, is the GLA35 the best small performance SUV you can buy? Let's find out. As mentioned, this is the second generation GLA. What's different? It's bigger. Specifically, it's taller. Why? Mercedes wanted this thing to look more like a traditional SUV than the first one, which looked more like a raised hatchback. Were they successful? We're gonna get to design in a minute. Before we do, let's talk about where the 35 slots into the GLA lineup. The base car is the GLA250. Then you have this one, the GLA35, and above it is the even more powerful GLA45. Back to this car, what does it compete with? Most closely with the BMW X2 M35i. Audi does make an SQ3, only they don't sell it here in the States, so really it's a two-car race. So who's it for? Well, it's an incredibly niche vehicle. This is for the customer that wants a small SUV, but they cannot stomach the idea of driving anything with less than 300 horsepower. I think the face is fine. It's nice looking up front. These vertical slats here, that's the AMG grille, which is lifted directly off of a 1952 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. You know, the legendary race car that competed in the Mille Miglia, that won the Carrera Panamericana, and for some reason has made its way to the front of your tiny SUV. But at least everything looks pretty good up front. The problems begin when you come down the side, specifically this massive wheel opening here. These are 20-inch wheels and they look tiny. So I guess Mercedes assumes that its customers are gonna slap 22s on here, but as it sits, I mean, this thing looks under-tired. Coming down the side, the surfacing is great, and Mercedes, they're excellent at that. When you get to the rear, things are much better. This looks like a Mercedes SUV. I see a GLE right here with twin tailpipes sticking out of a fake diffuser. Looks good. Now, Mercedes can design good-looking SUVs. The GLC is solid. I think the GLE looks great. And of course, the G-Wagon is an icon. The GLA, it misses the mark. And the award for the most improved cabin from one generation of vehicle to the next goes to the GLA. Hard to explain what a huge step up in quality this is compared to the last one. There's leather, there's metal, but most importantly, there is the design that we first saw on the last generation X-Class. It trickles its way down to the smallest SUV that Mercedes makes. The string of pearls, the ambient lighting, the adjustable ambient lighting, I should add, and all of that is made possible via Mercedes MBUX system, MBUX, the Mercedes-Benz user experience. As far as driving goes, look, it's an AMG steering wheel. I've got some controls here for, like, you know, the modes, comfort to sport. I can change the shocks individually, go from a fully automatic to a manual paddle shifted gearbox. Nice steering wheel. I wish the seats were better for an AMG. These are kind of flat. I wish there was more hugging, more bolstering, more support. The rear seat is much improved over the last one. There actually is a lot more space. It's still smug. Remember, this is a small SUV. If you put the seats down because of the extra height that they've added to this vehicle, you do have quite a bit of storage space. But again, I just want to impress upon you what a nice cabin this is. Performance. This is an AMG. Under this hood, you will find a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine that makes a healthy 302 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. All of that gumption is routed through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission before hitting all 4 wheels. Problem is, we're just not in love with how this thing drives. Yes, all that power, the dual clutch, the all-wheel drive, it makes it very quick in a straight line. But when you're using the paddles and you go to downshift, that's when things become a problem because the gears they're too long. There's too much space between them. So you want to pull the lower gear and the engine would have to rev too much. So it doesn't even allow the shift. Then you have the steering. It is numb. It kind of feels like one of those racing simulators. Very accurate, very detached. Although I doubt your racing simulator will understeer as much as the GLA35 does. And then comes the real killer, and that's ride quality. This thing is brutal in comfort. I'm not saying it's undrivable in Sport or Sport Plus. I'm saying don't drive it in Sport or Sport Plus. We wanted to like how the GLA35 drove. We're just disappointed with the reality of it. That said, in terms of fuel economy, 23 miles per gallon in the city, 29 miles per gallon on the highway. That is not bad for a 300 plus horsepower crossover. In terms of safety, we don't know. Why? Nobody has crash tested the new GLA yet. Typically, Mercedes vehicles are very safe, but we simply do not know. What do we know? This thing comes with a cool, active parking assist feature, which will take total control of the vehicle and help you to park it either parallel or perpendicular. Neighbors beware. Pricing. The GLA35 starts at $48,600. The base GLA250 is about $11,000 less. This car next to me has $9,800 in options. Actually, not a lot when you're talking about an AMG. The vehicle that this most closely competes with, the BMW X2 M35i, is about $1,000 less. Hey, Mercedes are expensive. News at 11. If there's one thing I want you to know about the 2021 Mercedes-AMG GLA35, it's that there aren't many tiny SUVs with over 300 horsepower. This is one of them. Look, this is one of those vehicles that sounds great on paper, right? 302 horsepower, dual clutch transmission, all-wheel drive, and yet the driving experience leaves us cold. If you can live without all that power, we actually recommend you take a look at the GLA250. You get all the functionality, all the utility, plus a really nice ride. Still, if you're one of those people that absolutely needs over 300 horsepower in their tiny SUV, you can get one that looks just like a 70-year-old race car. Kinda. To check out the latest rankings, go to motortrend.com/cars.